Right, hello everybody, it's Pit Windsor here and welcome. I'm right at the end of the day, so I hope you've all got the energy to last this next half an hour. So thank you very much, Mandy and Diana, for inviting me to speak. Still really trying to get used to all this talking without seeing who I'm talking to. But I think we're all sort of getting a little bit more used to that. So I'm here as a physio working in the area of breathing pattern disorders or dysfunctional breathing. So title of my talk is Breathe Well to Be Well, the ins and outs of healthy breathing. So my days can be very, very varied. So as you see here, this is a sort of a list of people that I might be seeing within a day. So I might be seeing people who have lung disease. So they might be people that are getting sort of disproportionate breathlessness. So their tests might show that they're actually doing pretty well on paper and they're medicated, but they're still getting some real discomfort and shortness of breath, sort of above and beyond what we would expect. Or people with healthy lungs who are just experiencing difficulty breathing or just a feeling that they're not quite getting enough air, which is one of the most common things that I see. So they might be fit, active people, but still breathless. Mouth breathing children, this is a huge problem. I was one of those and probably suffering a few of those consequences. Snorers, sleep apnea. Sleep is a huge subject, huge problem at the moment for so many people. And then there's the effect that breathing has on anxiety and panic. So really rewarding area to work in and very varied, as I said. So why do we breathe? Well, this sounds very obvious, really. I mean, the main function we all think about is just getting oxygen into our bodies and getting carbon dioxide out. And for the most part, our bodies are really, really good at doing that well and regulating that well. But breathing has a number of other functions. The three main ones we think about are the effect it has on regulating our nervous system, so our stress response. We also think of breathing as it is a movement pattern. It's a pattern of a whole load of muscles that really extend right from the vocal cords at the top all the way down to the pelvic floor at the bottom. So when that expression that we've had going for years now, our core strength, our core stability, which has caused an enormous amount of problems. I think we're sort of evolving right out of using that now. But we used to think of that as our abdominal muscles, but we really think, if we think of our core muscles, we should be going right again from the vocal cords right at the top of our pressure system to the pelvic floor at the bottom and every muscle in between. And they are all involved in breathing. So in that sense, breathing is also involved in every posture and movement that we make. It also has a physiological function as well. So it takes the pH of our blood, which is really important as well. So if that goes a little bit out of whack, we start becoming a little bit more either alkaline or acidic, and that's going to again have repercussions all through the body. We also, of course, use our breath for speaking and for singing. And it's a powerful anti-reflux mechanism. That squeezing of the diaphragm around the lower part of our esophagus is really important for that. It's also as we breathe, it's a movement, like I said, it's also a fluctuation of pressure. So we have pressure above our diaphragm, our main breathing muscle. So that's our interthoracic pressure in our chest, and we also have our intra-abdominal pressure below the diaphragm. And those fluctuations, if you think a little bit about like a pump, as we breathe in and out and our diaphragm moves up and down, and then we have our abdominal muscles and our ribs and the muscles between the ribs, and all those muscles are helping to keep that pressure in and fluctuating and regulating. So all our fluid systems work by this pumping of our breathing muscles. So lymph drainage, really, really important for that and for our digestive system. And also that return, almost like suctioning that blood back up to our heart and helping the circulation around our body. So given that breathing has all these functions, within all these functions, things can go wrong with some pretty uncomfortable sensations and symptoms, and pretty frightening at times as well. So these are the sort of symptoms, and there are so many more than this, but these are the main things that I will see. So people getting short of breath even at rest. So they could be just sat in their chair and every so often needing that really big sigh. Often people complain of feeling air hunger or just not quite getting that satisfying breath. Or members of their family or work colleagues might just be noticing that they take these big breaths or sigh a lot. Fatigue and brain fog. Or we'll go into that a little bit later, but when we talk about breathing or more over breathing, this can really cause a lot of problems with cerebral blood flow. Tightness in the chest or restriction in the chest. This might be just a sensation, even if their ribs are moving really nicely. Anxiety, panic, dizziness, soreness, neck and shoulder region, and the jaw or body tension generally. Frequent sighing and yawning, reflux, as I said before, palpitations or chest pains, and lots more. That's by no means an exhaustive list. So of course, if you go to your doctor complaining of all these things, they are quite rightly going to be sending you off for all sorts of tests. So when I do see people with this, they've already sometimes been to see a respiratory consultant or a neurologist or a cardiologist, and all these tests have come back negative, and their doctor has often referred them off to a psychologist, saying that they are anxious, which again, of course, some people will need that. But this is a really, it's becoming increasingly recognised, but still a pretty poorly recognised area of dysfunctional breathing. So I briefly mentioned overbreathing, and this is really common. So it can be very subtle. So we think about hyperventilating as panic attacks, grabbing that paper bag and rebreathing carbon dioxide. So overbreathing is simply breathing more than the metabolic requirements of the body. So if we're sitting and relaxing, we're not really producing much carbon dioxide. CO2 is a waste product of our metabolism. So when we're contracting our muscles, when we're on the move, so if we're striding out with our poles, we're going to be creating carbon dioxide, and we need to get rid of it. So we breathe bigger, we breathe deeper, and we fill our lungs. But if we're doing this at rest, that's going to cause some imbalance, because we're not really producing much CO2, but we're flushing out a lot of it. So it's not really to do with the oxygen, that stays pretty stable. So if we drop our carbon dioxide, this causes narrowing of our airways, like asthma, and also of our circulation. So we reduce our blood flow to everywhere in our body. And this, if we reduce our blood flow to our brain, can cause, like I say, brain fog. But it's also preventing adequate oxygen delivery to every cell in our body. To enable our blood to give up oxygen, it likes to have a certain amount of carbon dioxide in there. So overbreathing actually causes less oxygen. So that's really a strange paradox to think about. Breathing too much actually causes less oxygen. So our main symptom that we get that we're overbreathing is actually a need to sigh or a need to take a big breath. So this is a classic case of poor or abnormal signaling from the brain. We're getting this strong sensation that we need to breathe more. We react to that, and so we breathe more. We start getting symptoms. This is uncomfortable. We start breathing more, and we get into this vicious cycle. So it's very common with anxiety. A normal reaction to stress is to breathe faster and breathe deeper. But after that stress is over, we want our breathing to settle down and become normal. So what is normal? Well, there is no normal really, but we'll talk about, because breathing really needs to respond to exactly what our body is doing. So it needs to be flexible and adaptable and responsive. But if we think about what is normal at rest, let's just check into our breathing. So as you're sitting here now, are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? And where are you moving when you breathe? So if you just pop a hand maybe at the top of your chest, just over that breastbone, and if you pop a hand on your belly, just above your belly button, and if you breathe in and out now, where are you moving? So can you feel that top hand moving, or can you feel the bottom hand? Can you hear yourself breathe? When you breathe in and breathe out, is there a pause at the end of that exhale, or are you quick to breathe in afterwards? How do you feel when you're sitting here? Are you feeling tense, or are you feeling pretty relaxed? What about if you sit away from the back of the chair and really upright? Has that changed at all? So if we go back to that high or low, has that changed at all? Are you breathing more on the top of your chest or more in the belly? How about if you slump right down and relax? Really let yourself slouch in the chair. Has that changed now? So just have a little bit of a time to tune into your breathing. So breathing at rest should be in and out through the nose 100% of the time. The nose is an amazing organ. It cleans the air, so it sterilizes it. We produce this substance called nitric oxide in the epithelial lining of our sinuses. And that's really important for bactericide, and also kills certain viruses as well. The nose filters. It's got turbinates in, so as we pull that air in through our nose, it goes through a pretty complicated series of channels, and it's warmed up, it's moistened. So really, if we think about the health of our lungs, it starts at our nostrils, and that pressure that the nose provides, the resistance it provides, is really important as well for oxygenating our lungs. So as you breathe in and out, you should be noticing just a very gentle temperature change. As we breathe in, that cool air, and as we breathe out, there's that gentle flow of warm air. So if you are unable to breathe through your nose, you really need to get that looked at. It's really, really important for so many reasons, and we haven't got time to go into all of them. But as children grow, the movement of our, or the coordination of our muscles, such as our lips and our cheeks and our tongue, when we're nose breathing, they all work to create a nice wide jaw. The bottom jaw comes and joins the top jaw nicely and meets that, and we get a wide upper palate because the tongue is really pushing into the top of our jaw all the time, gradually widening it. So if we're mouth breathing, and if you breathe through your mouth now, you have to have your tongue down at the base of your mouth, and that air gets taken over the top. So that tongue isn't in position. There's other factors as well, of course. There's saliva is a really important mixture of chemicals to help reduce plaque, etc., etc. So we will move on, but use your nose, and if you can't, need to look into why that might be, and sometimes it's literally habit. So really try and use your nose. Okay, so the other one important structure to talk about is our diaphragm. So if you put your hands right on your bottom ribs now, your diaphragm is like a big parachute shaped muscle cutting you in half, with your heart and lungs above, and your stomach and your liver right up underneath your diaphragm, and of course underneath that all your guts and all your squishy stuff. So a gentle movement of the belly at rest is all we should feel when we're breathing. So if you imagine now that you are holding a balloon, And you're holding it out in front of your tummy now. So let's have your front hand is at the front of the side of the balloon. So in front, that represents your abdominal muscles. The hand underneath the balloon, that represents the pelvic floor muscles. And then if you bring your hand back over the top of the balloon, you'll see that big dome over the top of the balloon. The whole of that dome represents your diaphragm. So if for a minute now you imagine you're pushing down on top of that balloon, your front hand is going to bulge outwards, and that's really the action of normal, relaxed breathing. So if you can try now and pull, imagine you're pulling that hand in towards your belly, and if you throw your imaginary balloon away now and actually pull your belly button in towards your spine, and now try and breathe into that tummy. It's going to be quite hard. So now your diaphragm is really prevented from lowering and flattening, and so your option now is to take that breath into the top of your chest. And this is a very common pattern we see as a habit with breathing, and that's going to lead to a lot of neck and shoulder tension, and it can also lead to problems with throughout the system with pelvic floor, and also with movement and posture and balance, and a whole host of other things. So moving on, how often should we be breathing? Well, roughly 10 to 14 breaths a minute. So another thing we often find with people with breathing pattern disorders is they're much, much faster than that. So we'll see people breathing up to 25, 30 breaths a minute. That air really hasn't got time to get nicely oxygenated, but also again, this is going to start firing off that stress response in our body. This is how we breathe when we're under stress, not when we're sitting and relaxing. And finally, at the end of our exhale, we should be having this momentary pause. So if you just let your breath out now, so that your exhale is just a nice gentle recoil of your ribs and your lung tissue, let that breath out. And then at the end of that exhale, it should be just a gentle full stop before that next breath kicks in. So think about giving yourself time to breathe out. And that analogy, it's a bit of a cliche, talking about waves on a beach, but that's exactly what we're thinking about when we're breathing. And I often say to people, because often when you have breathing disorders, your main drive is to get air in. And so I often sort of get people thinking the other way, and think about your breath cycle as going from one exhale to the next exhale, just like waves, just washing up a beach. And that exhale is a really important part with the pause, really important part of boosting what we call our parasympathetic nervous system. So that's our state of rest, digest, repair. It's our immune boosting, anti-inflammatory state. And that exhale and that pause is really important for stimulating that side of our nervous system. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of nose, the importance of relaxing your shoulders and allowing that breath out. And what about breathing on the move? So if we start thinking about getting out there with our poles. So when we start moving, we lose that pause at the end of the exhale. And it's important when we do start moving that, again, we don't get our breath out of proportionately fast or deep. So starting off nice and slowly, again, it just involves the nose and the diaphragm. It's not until we really start running hard that we need to open our mouth to breathe. So a really good idea to practice that. Again, that expression, if in doubt, breathe out, is really important. One of the most common things I find with people who get problems with breathing when they're exercising over and above just normally being puffed is that they start stacking their breaths on top of each other. So we call that dynamic hyperinflation. So if you take a huge breath in now, And then just let that breath out, but not fully. And then just take another big breath in now, right in top of the chest. Let a bit more air out, and then take another big breath in, and let a bit out and take another big breath in. So you should be able to feel it's gradually starting to get harder. That work of breathing is increasing. And if you think about that when you're exercising, that sense of effort will be increasing as well. So you'll be starting to fatigue your respiratory muscles. So what's happening there is you're reaching the elastic limit of your ribs and your lung tissue before you really need to. So try not to breath stack. It really makes the work of breathing increase, and it's again, it can just ramp up that stress system and make you feel like you're not getting enough air. The other thing with exercise also is when you stop, just take a little bit of time to make sure that your breath comes back down to rest again. So this is another issue we see, particularly with people that are really training hard. And it's all about, you know, using those muscles and really getting yourself out of path. But when you stop, have you spent a moment to think, right, have I allowed my breath to come back to normal and muscles to relax as well? So I recognise that person in the middle. There's Mandy. So why am I so excited about poles? So my cousin Sue is an OT in Vancouver, or on Vancouver Island, and Sue used to go on and on about her poles every time we spoke, and then finally we got to get together again, and she showed me them and what she was and how she was walking with them, and then I had a go, and it's such a fantastic design, and my patients absolutely love them. Now, if we're talking about, we just go back to the mechanics of breathing, and forgetting about your arms and legs for a minute, we are basically a cylinder, if you like, and how well we move, how well we balance, depends on our management of that internal pressure. And the diaphragm is right in the middle of that cylinder, pumping up and down and working with all those other muscles of postural stability. So the diaphragm really likes to be lined up with our other diaphragms. So if we think about our vocal cords across our throat, our diaphragm and our pelvic floor, we really, to be working efficiently, they really like to be sort of lined up. Now, if you lean forwards onto a walking stick, or if you're leaning forwards onto a walking frame or onto a pair of crutches, then you've dented that cylinder straight away. And you've also closed what we call our breathing window. So if you let yourself slump a little bit in your chair now and think about your breathing window from your sternum down to your belly button, when you're upright, you've opened that window, so immediately you can get a really nice breath, and you can allow your diaphragm to move really well. So that's one of the main reasons, like you're opening up your chest and you're improving your posture hugely. You're also using your upper limbs as well. So in that special action for using these poles, and we're bringing in all our trunk muscles, so everything's really able to work together to help us move and help us coordinate that moving in that breath. Of course, the social part of walking with poles is absolutely huge, and one of the problems with breathing pattern disorders is people get really nervous about being out and nervous about being out of breath. It's really, really important to get out of breath, and if your experience of being out of breath has been having, say, an asthma attack or having a panic attack, then that's going to ramp up your sense of fear for getting out of breath. So it's being actually motivated to get out and walk, and that social aspect, if you can get out and walk with friends, is so important for reducing that fear. So many benefits, and of course fitness and exercise tolerance as well. So this is a lovely picture showing all the muscles that are involved in walking, as opposed with poles, as opposed to just walking with just letting your arms remain inactive. So we don't need to go too much into all of those, but it just shows how many muscles are being involved there. And this is, again, is a lovely one. If you look how beautiful this upright posture is, and how much better this whole system is going to be working and interacting together to help with breathing, with posture, with balance. And as soon as you start getting onto a walking stick, you're going into that asymmetrical posture, and then again onto crutches, leaning forwards, and of course onto a frame, even worse, that forward lean. And here's a beautiful video here, looking at some fantastic hold techniques. So again, it's looking really relaxed, but really lovely, beautifully upright, relaxed posture. It's exactly what you need. So we're not using the shoulders to breathe here. Shoulders are relaxed, arms working hard, and that diaphragm's allowed to move. Okay. And then here's an important bit of research that's been done showing the beneficial effects of Nordic walking on resting heart rate, blood pressure, exercise capacity, maximum oxygen consumption, and quality of life with various diseases. So lots of research has been done in these areas. Okay, now I leave my patients on their first appointment with me. I give them a little row of stickers from our Office Works, which is our stationery supply chain store here in WA. And I give them these big green stickers, and they pop these stickers all around their house where they're going to notice them a lot. And these stickers are their stop, drop and flop stickers. And that's just telling people to, whenever they see these stickers, they're going to stop, check their mouths closed, drop the shoulders. And that flop is just a top to toe, relax, release your tension and exhale. So if in doubt, breathe out and use your snout. Now, I've talked about a lot of symptoms, like I said before, that if you go to them with your doctor, they're not going to be saying, go and see that physio and learn how to breathe correctly. They're going to be first ruling out any serious pathology. So shortness of breath, chest pains, tightness, palpitations, of course, are common signs of dysfunctional breathing, but always need investigating. So just to rule out any of those red flags. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.